I thoroughly believe he would have killed more people. He enjoyed it. He wasn't going to stop.
Arthur Shawcross, the Genesee River Killer. A convicted child killer released early who went on to murder 11 women in upstate New York.
Every day that we didn't find this person, somebody else might die.
He cut the female from the top of the neck all the way to the stomach. I think just to do it.
Hi, I'm Nick from True Crime Uncut. Welcome to Questions With. This week we're speaking with former police captain Lynde Johnston and retired senior investigator John McCaffrey, who caught Arthur Shawcross at the scene of the murder.
We first became involved in a case. There was several prostitution deaths, and we started thinking that there may be something that we should be looking at very closely. We first became, at least as far as I was concerned, about a potential serial killer is at the scene of Patricia Ives, who was found down by the YMCA. But when you stood at the scene of Patricia Ives and you looked to your left, and just down over the hill was where the body of Anna Stephan was found. Then if you looked north and you went down to Seth Green Island, there was the body of Dorothy Keeler was found. So there was a tight bunch of them, right, all in the same area. So you have all that right down there by the river, the Genesee River, and I got really nervous about that point, that there was certainly something very unique going on here.
The first 2 or 3 bodies, it was hard to determine the manner of death because they were decomposed. Later on, it was clear from their autopsies they were all strangled. In one case, he cut the female from the top of the neck all the way to the stomach. I think just to do it. I think he was angry with her, so he kind of started escalating. He not only started escalating by the mutilation, his frequency of abducting and killing them escalated, and that's what really concerned everybody.
We made what we call a war room, and what we did was we hung their photographs up because we want to remember who the victim is. You know, a lot of people don't care because they're a prostitute. Well, they're people, and they have mothers, fathers, sisters, brothers. So what we're trying to do is to link to see what commonalities we could find between the crimes. So we came up with a list of all these different categories that we wanted to start comparing. And every day that we didn't find this person, somebody else might die. So there's a lot of internal pressure on ourselves. We believed he was right down in that area where the prostitution activity took place. We felt he was there, and we just needed to find him. So the police were doing everything they could. They were thinking of all different ways. We had certainly surveillance teams out, people on roofs with binoculars. Every traffic ticket was looked at, and a lot of other covert activities that we did, which I won't discuss because we might use them again. There was a lot of concern that he was right there, someplace right there. All we had to do was try to find out who he was. We brought in profilers to help us with this case. What I wanted to do was have somebody come and take a look that wasn't involved in the day-to-day activity. You know, there's a lot of stress, a lot of, if we could have somebody else come in and just look at the cases to make sure we didn't miss anything, maybe offer some suggestions. So they sent a profiler here. They believed he was amenable type worker, that he'd blended right in with the community. He was not a person that would offend or make the prostitute nervous at all. He drives a lot, which turned out to be the truth. He frequents the river area. Because he liked to fish. He was always around water. Possibly he would be sexually dysfunctional, which he was. And he had a potential to return to the scene. So that was kind of what the profile was talking about. Then you take that profile, then you start looking at names that have come up in association with each one of these girls. So it was a helpful tool, along with all the other helpful tools, forensics and and just plain old good police work with the investigators.
It was early January of 1990 that we had a uniformed trooper on patrol in the Brockport, New York area, and he said that passing motorist had just located the pair of boots. So he went there, retrieved the pair of boots, and did a very cursory search of the area. And in the field, he found a pair of blue jeans. And lo and behold, in the blue jeans, in the rear pocket, was a birth certificate of a young lady by the name of Felicia Stevens. So in the following days, we proceeded to send our canine to the area. And we also, the New York State Police, we have our own helicopter, and it was based in Rochester. So we immediately put the helicopter in the air, and for 3 days, we flew that area searching for the body, hoping that even though it might be snow-covered, we'd recognize it. As we're flying over Salmon Creek, underneath the bridge, frozen in the ice, was a body. Now, on top of the bridge was this gray celebrity, and the passenger door was open, and this guy was actually urinating out of the passenger side. And as we flew over with the helicopter, he slid over into the driver's seat and proceeded in an easterly direction. I knew that the body wasn't going anywhere because it was frozen into the ice, and I assumed it was the body of Felicia Stevens that we were looking for. So we followed the gray celebrity into the village of Spencerport. He pulled into the rear parking lot of a nursing home, and we hovered. I had radioed for a uniformed trooper to come to the location, and as the person got out of the car, they just walked into the nursing home in the back door. I gave the identification of the individual to the trooper, and he walked into the nursing home. The trooper radioed and told me that the person that he was interviewing was Arthur Shawcross. The first questions any uniformed trooper usually asks is, "Can I see your license and registration?" And Art told him, "Well, I don't really have a driver's license." "Well, why don't you have a driver's license?" was the question the trooper asked. And he says, "Well, I'm on parole." "What are you on parole for?" "Well, I was convicted of killing 2 children in Watertown, New York back in the early 70s. So this really drew our attention to the matter. So we took him back to our station, and our investigators started talking to him. The first homicide that they had up there was Jack. Jack was reported missing. So they did a search, couldn't find the body, and Art was somewhat of a suspect because he was known to fish in the area. He just denied it. He just denied any involvement with Jack, and they didn't have enough to arrest him. And then I think it was a few months later, Karen Ann Hill was killed. The same investigators were doing the case, so they went back to Shawcross, and he was in the same location as she came up missing, everything else. So they got him to admit to the killing of Karen Ann Hill. And in continued conversation with Shawcross, they said, did you kill Jack Blake? The district attorney promised Shawcross that if he took him to the body of Jack Blake, that he would not ask for a life sentence of him. Shawcross agreed to the deal, so Shawcross took him to the body of Blake. And so that's how he ended up with the 15 to 25 year sentence. He ultimately got out after 14 years, I think. But that's how that deal was cut.
It's hard to believe that Shawcross served just 14 years for the murder of 2 children. But he was reportedly a model prisoner and therefore was released early. Now, back to Lynde and John.
He was pretty cooperative after the police explained that they told him there was a body under there and it looks suspicious. He said that he saw the helicopter, didn't know anything about the body, of course, and he also said that he had to urinate and he had a bottle and he was starting to pee in the bottle and the helicopter came, so he put the cap back on, swung around and just drove down to the nursing home there. Said, I don't know why they're following me because all I was doing was taking a pee on the bridge. So he was cooperative in that way, but he really wasn't forthcoming about anything.
So we actually took him home. We took him home because we told him, you can't drive because you don't have a driver's license. But thanked him for his cooperation, took him back to his apartment, and we had a surveillance team on him. And he drove downtown and he went into a senior citizens high-rise, and he went in there, and he went to this lady's apartment, and that worried us because we certainly didn't want him to commit another homicide. So the investigators actually went to the lady's apartment and knocked on the door and told Art, we just got a couple questions and we'd like you to come with us. Would you be willing to do that? And he was willing to come. So we took him to the Rochester Police Department headquarters, put him in an interview room. He was starting to be a little defensive. The turning point was they asked him, is your girlfriend involved in killing the girls? And he emphatically says, no, she's not involved. She has nothing to do with this. It was me. So with that, they had all the photographs of the victims, and they put the photographs on the table. It was like a deck of cards. He says, I killed her. This is so-and-so. This is Darlene Trippy. I did this. I did her. He admits to 10 homicides. Now, at this time, there were, I think, 3 or 4 of those girls' bodies that we had not recovered yet. So the investigator says, you owe it to the girls' families to tell us where the bodies are. He was reluctant at first, but on their investigator's insistence, he says, I can take you to the bodies. So he got into a car, and he took us to the locations where he had deposited the bodies. And they were either in remote areas or there were near fishing streams. So the common denominator were where he had fished. The only homicide that he would not admit to was that of Felicia Stevens. During the interviews with Shawcross, we were still searching for Felicia Stevens' body, and fortunately, a hunter actually came across the body and found it for us. And she was about a quarter mile from the area we were searching, but she was snow-covered. She had been strangled in the same manner that the other girls had.
It was always somebody else's fault instead of his. They did something that made him die. Broke the gear shift of his car, tried to take his wallet, bit him. Although he admitted him, I don't think he ever took full responsibility for why he did them.
We learned from one of the prostitutes that actually survived interaction with Shawcross that he apparently told the girls to play dead. So we think probably he told the girls, relax, I can have sex with you quicker if you play dead. And so when they were playing dead, that's when he strangled them, is what we assume happened.
He had claimed when he was young he got hit with a head with a discus, and he's claiming that he had all these problems. He just could not get along with people, or he couldn't make a meaningful relationship with a woman. Really concerned only about his gratification, how he felt. He didn't care about anybody else. Well, certainly the key is he admitted to all the crimes. And in fact, it was never a question of whether he was guilty. That was never a question. It was he was he in his right mind, so to speak.
His defense was insanity, that he didn't know what he was doing. And that was easily disproved because he took us to the bodies that he had disposed of. So you couldn't be insane and know where you left the bodies. He had a psychiatrist that was provided to him. He related to her how he had an abused childhood. His mother had used him sexually and otherwise, and that it wasn't his fault that he was the way he was. When it went to trial, the jury deliberated less than 8 hours after 2 or 3 weeks of testimony and found him guilty of all 10 homicides. Well, this is all about the families of the girls. They're still somebody's daughter, somebody's sister. So there was a great deal of satisfaction and relief that we had brought closure to these families. Those bodies probably may never have been found because they were in pretty remote locations. So for us to be able to go to the families and say, listen, we know what happened to your daughter. There's a great degree of satisfaction that we brought closure to the families. Unfortunate closure, but closures.
I've often thought about Shawcross and if he wasn't caught on that bridge. I believe eventually he'd have been caught, but at a price. The price would have been other victims. And I'm so thankful that the state police were up that day, that they spotted him, that we could end this. I thoroughly believe he would have killed more people. He enjoyed it. He wasn't going to stop. As a matter of fact, somebody asked him a question later on about if he ever got out of prison. He said he would go and kill again.
Arthur Shawcross was sentenced to 250 years in prison. Behind bars, he openly spoke about his crimes and tried to claim they were connected to childhood abuse. He died of a heart attack in 2008. We hope you enjoyed this deep dive into one of the world's most evil killers, Arthur Shawcross. For more content like this, give us a thumbs up below and hit that subscribe button. Make sure to tell us in the comments which killer you'd like to see next. I'm Nick from True Crime Uncut. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.